It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. Can you feel it? Love
It's in the
is
air.
in the air, baby.
Golly.
You know, it's kind of been a winter from hell up here in Wisconsin. I mean, between the negative 40-degree temps and the waves of sickness that I and everybody else seems to be enduring this year. But you get to this point and it's like, man, it kind of makes your heart feel good. The days are getting a little bit longer. We're like a less than a month away from day. It's all starting to turn around right now. Like,
Yeah, there's like we got some flowers in the house, so you get a little bit of the green. It was like 30 degrees, so we opened the windows just to let some fresh air inside. We're gonna go get like a box of chocolates. Our local chocolate shop has a new flavor. It's like it feels like society is like waking up a little bit from its
yeah.
hibernation for the winter.
And it kind of mirrors a little bit what's happening in the draft world right now, where it seems like everybody's starting to wake up. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the season just ended.
Yep.
Congratulations to the Seahawks on a dominant Super Bowl victory.
Unbelievable. Great performance. Just, I mean, kind of put their foot on the Patriots' neck and never let them come up for air. It was pretty spectacular, honestly. They kept saying, they say defense wins championships, and they had the best defense left in the playoffs. And it was, I mean, best defense in the playoffs. And they get there, and it looked even more dominant than I think anybody really expected. Because, I mean, Drake May was looking so good, second in MVP, 1 vote shy of winning the thing. Impressive season by him, but then gets to the big game, and it's like, well, it can't really get much going. And you hear Julian Love saying on the sideline, like, he's making young quarterback mistakes, man, and that's just how it goes sometimes. You get there and it doesn't quite turn into it. But great turnaround from the Patriots. Better win for the Seahawks.
I mean, it was one of those situations where it didn't really hit me until I was watching the game. Like, who are the stars in this game?
Yeah.
Like if you're a football guy or girl
Mm-hmm.
and you're watching this, like you're gonna obviously know, like, oh yeah, there's big names on these teams. But you think about the how many tens of millions of people are just at somebody's apartment or house for a party, and like they just kind of want to watch Bad Bunny and just see what's going on here. It's like, who are they going to know in this game?
Yeah.
And it was kind of crazy to see these teams there on that stage. But within that is, here's this 23-year-old quarterback, second youngest in history to make it to the Super Bowl, a guy that we love, that we talked about a lot a couple of years ago and we're very excited about. And this is what he looked like on the big stage. And now you're going to have all these people
Yeah.
that are like, who's this May guy? He kind of sucks.
Well, the funny thing, I watched it at my parents' house, and my mom, she goes, "This is the worst quarterback I've ever seen." I'm like, all right, let's take it down a notch. We don't gotta. And she's like, "No, I'm serious. I don't think, at least in a Super Bowl, I don't think I've ever seen somebody this bad." And then like EPA per play in Super Bowl history comes out, and he's dead last. I'm like, "Hey, mom knows
Yeah.
ball. What are you gonna do? You know?"
It wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't good, but hey, that's he's going to be back, I think. Or maybe he won't
Yeah, I
be,
don't
but
know.
at least he'll bounce back in his career, and
He'll be
you're
in the
not.
playoffs again. Who knows if I mean, it's real hard to get to the mountaintop. Not
Yes.
everybody's Tom Brady. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I seem to recall Aaron Rodgers winning a Super Bowl and me sitting at the cafeteria lunch table in high school and being like, this is the beginning of a dynasty. And then we never got back.
yeah,
So
yep. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth of the game. And Dan Campbell kind of summed it up best last year to his team, where he's like, "Hey, this might be your only chance at the taking the bite at the apple." And Who knows? So you're all mortal in the sport, and gotta try to make yourself immortal with that Super Bowl title. And only one team gets to hoist it every year, and this year it happened to be the Seahawks.
Sam Darnold,
That's right.
NFL immortal.
Maybe the biggest reclamation project in NFL history. I don't know.
I mean, it's like the takes are coming out like worst quarterback to win a Super Bowl since Trent Dilfer, maybe like the second worst ever. And I'm like, is he though?
He looked pretty good.
Yeah, like are we at a point here where we're just like not giving him credit for turning his career around for real? Like I
Right.
don't know that this is a situation where it was like they really schemed him into this. I mean, like I'm Kubiak, that's great, and I'm excited to see what that looks like in Vegas, but I don't think that Darnold going from the Vikings in a completely different system to Seattle and playing lights out and then winning a Super Bowl, like I think we're just at a point where he's just a good player.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was making plays in that game. It's not like he was just pitching and catching with JSN like it was easy. There was not a lot of, I don't think, easy throws and catches that he made. I know Ken Walker obviously played a big role, and he won Super Bowl MVP for that reason. But there was a lot of plays where Sam Darnold made those plays himself, where he's climbing the pocket, sliding around, breaking out of sacks, So all respect to him. I think it's just one of those really fun storylines that you just don't really get. You usually got the best team, the powerhouse, like the Eagles, where you're looking at top to bottom stacked roster, or you're looking at the Chiefs, where you got the best quarterback in the league, and then whatever you got around them. And this was kind of the opposite, where you build this team through mostly draft and develop, and then you bring a quarterback in that's good enough, and he proves to be maybe a little more than good enough. And so I got a lot of respect for what they did.
And with that, the NFL season comes to a close, and it is, I know there's like 8 different official starts of draft season, but I'm kind of workshopping a take that it's after the Super Bowl, because that's literally the end of the NFL season. And what season starts when that season ends? It's draft season.
Yeah, the off season is the beginning of draft season. I think that's fair. I think like the event that marks the beginning of draft season is the combine, but we've been saying pretty much every episode like it's the official start of draft season. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it could be the Senior Bowl. It could be the Shrine Bowl, which is a week earlier. I mean, there's so many places.
It could be the end of the college football season. It could be, when people start declaring for the draft. Who knows?
No matter what marker is the start of draft season, I can tell you that it's also the season of love here. And that's what we're here to do today, because Valentine's Day is right around the corner. We're just days away at this point, and we're here to play matchmaker. This is 4 years now that we have invited suitors to come to Camp Dynasty. The campers, they put on their best tux and they line up in the cabin, and we invite these NFL teams to come in and try to win their heart. And we're trying to make a perfect match between player and team. So that's what we're going to be doing today. How this kind of works, if you have not been here before, is we will spin the wheel of love. That will tell us which camper. There it is. If you're on YouTube, you can see it right there. That's the official wheel of love, making its 4th appearance now on Camp Dynasty. We will get a player off of the wheel of love, and then we will share 4 suitors that are courting that player. These are teams that we have pre-selected. You've chosen for 6 players. I've chosen for 6 players. We've pre-selected 4 suitors that are based loosely off of perceived draft range. So these aren't just like, let's look at the 32 teams in the league and try to match it up. It's here's kind of where we expect this player to go Maybe some of them are sitting a little higher. Maybe some are sitting a little lower than what you're seeing in a mock draft right now, but it's February. So this is a very fluid situation. We're trying to cover all the bases and give, each team within that range, however wide it may be, a chance at winning this player's heart.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that range is going to be very wide this year.
Yeah. This year, there's, as we've talked about ad nauseum, it's a weird class. There's a lot of variables, and we don't really know where a lot of these guys are going to land. Usually, you kind of have your finger on the heartbeat of the class and like where they're going to land. But at this point, it's just hard to say with some of these guys, and so we kind of tried our best to narrow it down to where we feel the best about it, and we've done that in past years, and sometimes it works out. See Tetairoa McMillan to the Panthers, we said was going to be a perfect match, and then they end up drafting him. And it's like, hey, kind of hit the nail on the head there. Sometimes it doesn't. I won't say when we've done that, but.
And this is going to be a weird one. I will say, for at least one of my guys, the range is the widest I've ever had, because it's like you might go at the top of this round or you might go at the bottom of this round, and I don't really know. But we will have a perfect match here. We will have a love connection if Collin and I have chosen the same suitor as the player's perfect match. If we have chosen different perfect matches or different suitors, then it will not be a perfect match. We have to be on the same page. We are a unit. We're playing Jesse Palmer on The Bachelor here and trying to sync it up.
Right.
But
which I've seen.
I mean, listen, Jesse Palmer is, I think, one of the most talented people in media.
Okay.
Because he will go host The Bachelor, just rock it. He gives the real dramatic, like, when you're ready. Like he's handing him the final rose and he just looks at the guy or the woman. He's like, when you're ready. But then 4 days later, he's calling a Mac game on ESPN, and he's like breaking down the scheme of this. And I'm just like, you are a man of many, many talents. Jesse.
Yeah. Haven't watched The Bachelor, but it reminds me of Jeff Probst, where Probst is a dog on Survivor.
Which I have not seen.
Right.
And you have not seen The Bachelor, so we are...
And people have asked him, because he kind of live commentates these challenges. They're like, why don't you do sports? And he's like, I don't think I'd be good at it. And everybody's like, Jeff, you'd be great. You do it for Survivor, and like, these are just obstacle courses. Like, if you had a game and a story to tell, and he's like, no, that's not for me. I'll just keep living on Fiji for, a month of my life twice a year. I think I'll be all right.
That's not a bad life at all.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see if we can make our campers' lives a little bit better, or maybe their NFL counterparts' lives better by earning the chance at having their talents on their team. This is fun because we're bringing in the actual NFL impact here. We're going to talk teams. We're going to talk some of the coaching changes that have happened, the fits for these guys. We're really getting into it here. So let's kick it off. Let's bring up the Wheel of Love and give it the first spin of the evening.
Here we go. This is the first year I've had control of the Wheel of Love.
You're controlling the Wheel of Love.
I feel kind of powerful.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Let's see who we got first. It is Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver at A&M. So that was my player, Casey Concepcion. This one is, I went kind of late first, early second, and that's due to the nature of this wide receiver class, I would say. Pretty weaker class, and Concepcion is up in both of our top fives in our wide receiver list, so that brings him into that early second, late first. So I have him at 31 to New England, who, as we might have seen in the Super Bowl, is in kind of desperate need of some playmakers at the wide receiver position. Because, I mean, like Mac Hollins catching a big third down, not really what you're looking for. And Stephon Diggs isn't getting any younger. The like Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, they're all like solid players, but nobody that I don't think is a standout. Concepcion, good player. Then we got the Jets at 33. We all know that Garrett Wilson ended the season as the leading receiver for the Jets last year, despite missing most of the season. I think he had like just around 300 yards, and he is still the leading receiver. So you talk about a team that's also in desperate need of some wide receiver help. The Jets are one of them. Arizona at 34. While Michael Wilson did come on as an incredible player and Marvin Harrison Jr. is still there, they still don't have what I would say is like a slot receiver. Michael Wilson is Calvin Johnson reincarnated. Marvin Harrison Jr. is like a Z receiver, a boundary receiver that is a good jump ball threat, a good sideline threat, can do the big boy stuff, but I wouldn't say is like quick or anything like that or has wiggle, and Concepcion can do that. And then we have Tennessee at 35, who also is pretty barren at the wide receiver position. Cam Ward needs some help. So the team that I went with as the perfect match for KC Concepcion is the Tennessee Titans.
Do you want to give your rationale first, or do you want me to?
Okay, so my rationale is I guess I'll say how I ruled out some teams. Okay. Is Arizona, while they need wide receiver help, I think they need at least out of these four teams, even though he'd probably fit the best. The fantasy implications are like, I don't know if I'd love it if he landed on Arizona. I feel like there's less targets. We don't know the quarterback situation, that kind of thing. The Jets, I don't know if he lives in the same world as Garrett Wilson, but I think there's a little bit of overlap there. And I also, again, like quarterback problems, maybe coaching problems. Like, I don't really know. I don't really love what's going on in Jets. I don't know if Aaron Glenn's a lame duck over there.
Do you know who they hired as their offensive coordinator?
I don't know if I saw.
It happened very recently, and I didn't know that. I didn't even see it come through.
Yeah.
It's Frank Reich.
I hate that.
And then it was like future Jets interim head coach Frank Reich.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's true. Yeah. That's what it seems like Aaron Glenn's kind of a lame duck coach, and he's going to be a defensive coordinator again before we know it. And it's like, do I really want a talented guy getting subjected to being a Jet? The other one I strongly considered is obviously New England. That was probably close second place, but again, they have a lot of these kind of guys on that roster where it's like Pop Douglas is kind of a similar player, and you look at like even Stephon Diggs is playing a lot of slot these days to force him to get open against these inside corners and linebackers and into zones. And Kyle Williams is a burner, so you don't got to really worry about that. He can take the top off on the outside, but so ended up narrowing it down to Tennessee, where maybe you can bring him in and he can grow with Cam Ward into this new offense with a new coaching staff and become a number like 2 wide receiver on this offense, maybe long term. And then, you feel a little better about the upside of this player rather than trying to slot him into an already established place and let him kind of marinate a little bit with the rest of the team.
I have to say, I was a little bit nervous when Concepcion was up first here on the Wheel of Love, because you want to start with a love connection. Like, you don't want to start the mixer with a want. And I thought this was one of my bolder matchmaking picks, but this is a perfect match.
Yes.
And the Titans. I thought you were going to go New England.
It was close.
what you like, you walking through your process there pretty much mirrors exactly where I ended up with it, where Arizona, yeah, they don't have necessarily this guy, but I don't think that like Concepcion going to be the number 3 there and being this sort of like kind of gadgety player, like behind 2 established players, is like the greatest thing for him or for us as fantasy players. And then the Jets is just like, it's a dumpster fire to the point where like I don't even I don't even I know that they need bodies and I just don't even really want one of these guys to go there. But um New England would make sense. They need playmaking. We saw it in the Super Bowl. It's decimated, but it's like Pop Douglas and Kayshon Boutte, and it's I just don't know that this is the right guy to slot in there to fix all of that. And so it was the Titans, where you have Brian Daboll coming in. This is a player that, you know, offering you a different size and a little bit of a different skill set even, but a kind of a similar sort of thing to a Wan'Dale Robinson, where you're just going to ask him to be a weapon, basically. Like, we can run screens to him. We can line him up out of the backfield. We can just get him across on these like jet sweep motion plays. This is all stuff that he showed that he can do in college, can do it at a high level, but he's also a legitimate route runner on the outside. And I think that's another part of this is you have the promising, the all pro rookie Chimere DK, Pro Bowl, player
That's
here.
right.
But
On
we
Wisconsin,
can keep,
baby. Come on.
there it is. Badgers represent. But this is a player that is playing out of the slot primarily for them in DK. You can keep him there, and we can keep Aya Manor at the X position, and we can play Concepcion outside at the Z. I mean, he was playing outside at A&M. He was playing X even at A&M at times. So this is a versatile player. I mean, you'll be able to line him up inside as well to get him matched up and get the matchups you want, and then do all of those creative things as well with him. But I think this really just comes down to, let's add some firepower and creative potential to this new offense. Like you said, with the new coaching staff coming in, we need to get Cam Ward kind of up and running here. Let's get him a playmaker that can make his life easier in Concepcion.
Yeah, just unfortunate he won't be able to do the special teams thing.
Yes, we got that on lock. All right, let's pull it up. We are 1 for 1. That is a great feeling. Let's see if we can keep it going. Who is up next?
Let's let it roll. Uh-oh. Is the wheel weighted on this side? Antonio Williams.
It's really funny that these guys are going back to back, because if you listen to Wide Receiver 2.0, you heard us say these guys are very similar players. And the difference is that I think right now, and we both had Concepcion higher, I believe.
Yep.
And that's kind of what the draft board, the mock drafters, and if you checking out Dane Brugler's top 50 or DJ's top 50, you're generally going to see Concepcion higher than Antonio Williams at this point. But the problem is, or maybe the challenge is, Antonio Williams is all over the place. Like, DJ has him as like a top 35 player, and then I think he's outside of Dane's top 50. And consensus big board has him at like 70. So there's really no way to get a good firm grasp on where the, quote unquote consensus is on Williams right now, but he's still a player that I think that both of us like. I was kind of, still really thinking about that 2024 film with him, and this 2025 season just being such a weird one with Clemson, but was not a bad year for Williams either. But the range here basically was the second round for me. So We have our suitors, the Raiders at 36, the Browns at 39, the Falcons at 48, and the Bills at 60. And of these four suitors, I selected the Atlanta Falcons for Antonio Williams. My rationale here for this one, kind of similar to the conversation we just had, in the sense of I look at a team like the Browns and I feel like they don't necessarily have this guy, but I don't know that Williams is the wide receiver that I'm envisioning is going to come into this team and turn it around and be that kind of difference making presence that it seems like they need right now. The Raiders is a fine spot, and Kubiak coming in, that's interesting. There's other guys of this mold that I prefer there. And so I was kind of incorporating that here. Like there's other wide receivers that maybe even guys we're not even talking about today that I just feel like are much better fits there than a guy like Williams is. And then the Bills wouldn't be a bad spot, but I kind of comped Antonio Williams to Khalil Shakir. And so I don't know that we need two Khalil Shakirs in Buffalo. So that leads me to Atlanta, who has an absolutely desperate wide receiver need. And that is a common motif, I think, that we will hear throughout this episode as we talk about a lot of wide receivers. There's a lot of teams right now that pretty desperately need somebody in the room, whether it's a 2 or a 3. There's a lot of teams that just didn't field competitive wide receiver units this year. And the Falcons was certainly one of them, where you had, Drake London being the alpha number one, and he was kind of banged up a little bit, had 900 yards, missed some time. You have the resurgence of then Kyle Pitts, who actually ends the season as Atlanta's number one receiver. And of course, he's now a pending free agent. Bijan Robinson was their third receiver with over 800 yards. And then you get to Darnell Mooney, who had like 400 yards. And then it just completely falls off. So you're talking about a tight end and a running back as part of the top 3 receivers on this team. And I mean, Bijan is obviously an offensive weapon, but you want to have a guy outside of Drake London that you can count on. And I think Williams profiles as the kind of player that fits into this room, kind of like a natural, successor to Darnell Mooney, who I think, he'll still be there for 2026. I don't think the contract really, warrants him being cut, nor can they really afford to lose him. So you'll still have Mooney operating as the number 2, and you're going to have a player that profiles similarly to him coming in, and Williams being the number 3, maybe even pushing Mooney for that 2 spot through the season. And then, as you move forward, you hope that you have found your number 2 wide receiver of the future with the, smaller but explosive creator in Antonio Williams.
Yeah, for between these 4 teams, Raiders, Browns, Falcons, Bills, it came down to 2 for me. It came down to the Raiders and the Falcons. A lot of the reasons that you outlined were is like the Browns just not really interested in kind of the similar conversation we just had about the Jets, where it's like, I don't really want this guy like on this franchise, and maybe it has to do with the team right now, but the Jets and the Browns also have just this like kind of cursed vibe to them in general. And so like, these guys are already kind of, fringe wide receiver 2s. I don't need them to have anything else working against them. And then, so bring you to the Falcons and the Raiders. And so this is not going to be a perfect match, unfortunately. Can't start out 2 for 2. I went with the Raiders, and the reasoning for that is new head coach that's offensive minded, that seems like he knows what he's doing with Kubiak, and then Number one pick likely going to be Fernando Mendoza right now. It can kind of chalk that in. And then don't really have, like, you have Brock Bowers there, you have Ashton Genty there, you need some help on the O-line. We all know that there are a lot of things that they need, but I think wide receivers near the top of that list, and having a playmaker like Antonio Williams, I think, is something that is sorely needed for this Vegas team. And somebody that maybe Omar Cooper-ish for Fernando Mendoza, where he can kind of trust him over the middle, trust him with some tough catches, have him, running some of these more fun behind the line of scrimmage things where you can stretch the defenses laterally a little bit while you gash them with Ashton Genty. So I just think he adds a little bit of a dynamic for this Vegas team that's sorely needed.
You know who's more Omar Cooper-ish than Antonio Williams?
Are you gonna? Who is it?
Omar Cooper.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked, like, Cooper wasn't on wide receiver 2.0. I honestly hadn't even watched him up until that point. I have had a chance to watch him since then. I think I'm a little bit lower on him than it seems like other folks are. It seems like he's kind of a buzzy, trendier name. And then Dane actually had him in his top 30 in his latest top 50 that he just released, which was pretty shocking to me. But man, I feel like that fit with him going to Vegas, pairing with Mendoza. It was like something I couldn't get out of my head with this one. And I was just like, I just kind of want them to take Cooper instead and pair those two guys and get this, Kubiak offense up with a creative motion guy that you can do a lot of different things with. And then also has this rapport. But I will admit was probably clouding my judgment more than it should have. And I think Williams is going to profile very similarly to what you're getting with a Cooper. And therefore it makes a lot of sense that he would be a player that would fit in this offense as well.
Yeah. Just get some speed, get some, easy targets, get the ball out of Mendoza's hand quick, and get it into Antonio Williams' hand and see if he can make something happen.
Okay. Well, as we know, Love is not perfect.
Not
if
always.
It was, we can't go 12 for 12 here, but we can get this thing on the right track. I know we can. Let's see who's next.
Rolling the wheel of love again. We have a tight end.
Oh, which one though? Oh!
Kenyon Sadiq. I believe this was this one is yours.
Man, if you're listening on the pod feed, you're like, what are they screaming about? The wheel almost did swerve us a little bit there. We had two tight ends back to back. But we're going with Sadiq, tight end 1 for both of us. A very exciting, trendy name all over the place in the first round of mock drafts right now. And I kind of centered around that middle late part of the first round. I think for me, the top of the range is probably 15 to the Buccaneers. That's going to be our first suitor. And then we have the Chargers at 22, the Eagles at 23, and the 49ers at 27. So this is a pretty wide range, and this is another player that it's kind of hard to imagine what's going to happen with him. I could see him easily going in the teens, being gone by the time these, 22, 23, this comes up. But I just think when you're talking about perfect matches in this range, there weren't a lot of tight end needy teams that I thought made a lot of sense. And this is not a mock draft. So we're going purely off of teams in the range that make sense. And so I think in this case, I'm looking at the Buccaneers as a team that has Cade Otton, and that's fine. but we have Zach Robinson coming in as the offensive coordinator now. This is a McVay style offense. We know the prevalence of this 12-13 personnel rise with that scheme. I think that's a very interesting spot. I think the Chargers was a trendy tight end spot for us last year when we did this, and I think even the year before. They have Gadsden, and that's great. And I like Gadsden a lot, but we've learned that teams are very willing to invest in multiple tight ends. And especially when you have a player that is much more of a receiving threat like Gadsden, adding a more multi-dimensional player like Sadiq makes sense. And the same can go for the Eagles as well, where Dallas Goedert getting a little bit older. And also, like, they like to play Grant Calcaterra, and why not just play Sadiq instead? But all of that is to say that why not just give Kenyon Sadiq to Kyle MFing Shanahan and see what he can do with them? Because I am selecting the 49ers as the perfect match here. George Kittle is coming off of an Achilles tear. We don't know what that's going to look like when he comes back. And he's already, tight ends can play for forever. Look at what Travis Kelce is doing right now. But I think getting a little bit older, coming off of a significant injury like that, and then also the fact of the matter is it doesn't really matter if they have George Kittle, because it's not like this offense in particular can't benefit from having 2-star tight ends. This is an offense that can deploy this 12 personnel look, and think about how scary that looks when it's George Kittle and Kenyon Sadiq. And you have to account for both of those players as blockers as well as receiving threats. That opens the door so much for them to get really creative with their run looks and their play action. And I just feel like it's an absolute nightmare in the making. And so I don't know if he's going to get to 27, but man, I kind of want to see what happens if he does.
Yeah, I like the idea of him on the 49ers a lot, but I don't know if I want him near that electrical substation. I don't. They're saying the leaves are falling off the trees by the substation, and so I don't know if I need that in my life. But the visions of 12 personnel, of him being a starting tight end this year would be pretty sweet. A lot of these teams, like you said, have an established tight end, and he might have to wait a year or two, or he'd have to split the load with another guy. And year one, it would be a lot of Kenyon Sadiq for the 49ers. I leaned the Bucks at first, and I was like, there's kind of a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. I don't know if I want Sadiq. He's a different body, a different energy than a lot of these players. You talk about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are getting older, and obviously, Godwin hurt again, and you look at Mike Evans, who he was fine last year, but he was banged up too. Meka Egbuka started the season hot and kind of ended on a dud, and so I don't know. I think I'm staying away from the Bucks there. There's a lot of guys there. I don't know what's going on with any of them, so I don't know if I want to add another one into the mix, especially Cade Otton last year was so good. This year, he was terrible. And it's I'm going to stay away from Tampa Bay. The Chargers, I always want a tight end to go to the Chargers. We had Oronde Gadsden go there. I'm good. I'm staying away from that. We got our guy. Philly, that was the one where I was like, that those screens they throw to Dallas Goedert? Imagine if they just did that to Kenyon Sadiq. That's money. But they don't have their, war criminal offensive coordinator there anymore. So maybe they don't do that anymore. So I ended up going with the 49ers too. This is a perfect match. So basically replace Tungus with Kenyon Sadiq. And profit, I guess.
It's scary. I don't know that it's going to happen, but at the same time, this whole prevalence of the rise of heavy personnel and stuff. I think I'm starting to think that Sadiq might go higher than I'm thinking because of that. Like, because of teams looking at this and saying, even if we have a guy, what the hell's stopping us from adding a guy like this?
Right.
And then how scary. I mean, Trey McBride, there was literally a clip today with he was talking to Matt Harmon and they were talking about that. And McBride basically being like, we can put, 3 tight ends on the field. And like, what is a defense going to do? Because they're thinking run and they have to account for us. And so they're going to put, linebackers on the field. And then, oh, wait a minute, I'm Trey effing McBride. And how's a linebacker going to cover me?
Yep.
And so it's this whole thing. And I think Sadiq, he's going to fit in a lot of places, but man, 49ers, that's a scary thought.
Yeah, I would like it a lot. And, the thing is, when you look at this list, if he's at 23, I think the Eagles just take him because that's what they do. They're just like, yeah, good player, fell to us. I'll have him. So,
yeah.
But that was part of my thinking too. I'm like, oh, if he ends up getting there, I think the Seahawks or the Eagles will just take him. So
yeah.
All
right, let's do it. Bring it back up.
Bring it back up.
We got another love connection on the board here.
Who do we got next? The wide receiver.
Oh, let's go.
Here we go. This is the fun part of this class is these wide receivers. We got Carnell Tate up next, and I had the pleasure of choosing Carnell Tate's suitors. And I put him in the mid-first, I would say, maybe the back half of the mid-first, but the mid-first. Started with Baltimore at 14. I think that's a pretty juicy spot. We've been trying to get Lamar Jackson some help. We've taken some shots with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and Hollywood Brown, and the list goes on, but never a player like this, I wouldn't say, because Rashad Bateman, more of kind of a slim route runner. Same with Hollywood Brown, who is more of a speedster. Zay Flowers, kind of a yak threat downfield, a smaller player. Carnell Tate, just give him a chance at the ball and let him go get it. And I don't think Lamar Jackson, outside of like DeAndre Hopkins, has really had a player that can do something like this. And DeAndre Hopkins is like 39. So I don't think that's an exaggeration. I know he's not 39, but I don't think he's had a player like this. Maybe Isaiah Likely is the closest, but it's like Carnell Tate is such a difference maker in that realm. The Jets at 16, kind of the same argument I was making earlier, but this is he's kind of more like Garrett Wilson, I would say, where he can win these contested catches. Obviously, Garrett Wilson's a better route runner. Carnell Tate maybe a better jump ball player, but I don't know if I can even say that. But again, kind of hard to place a player on the Jets right now. The Panthers at 19, maybe a little redundant with McMillan, but why not have two excellent playmakers for Bryce Young to give opportunities to? Why not have more weapons for Bryce Young and this team that made the playoffs? Add some more. Now we got Coker, we got Tate, we got Tetero, McMillan. We got a real fun wide receiver trio here. And however you got to make it work, I'm sure you can, because these are all really talented players, and just having them all out on the field can be beneficial. And then we have Pittsburgh at 21. This is another kind of weird one where they don't have a lot of good wide receivers on their roster. They have DK Metcalf, and that's about it. And so it's like, what do we do after that? What are we doing at quarterback? We got Mike McCarthy in the building. I don't really know, but getting Carnell Tate in here helps. That's for sure. That's kind of the moral of the story for all these landing spots is like, having Carnell Tate on this team helps our franchise. So the team that I matched up with Carnell Tate is the Baltimore Ravens. It just felt like there's not a body in this wide receiver room that works as well. The Ravens generally don't get to pick this high. The last time they did, I think they landed Kyle Hamilton, and then they've been, in the AFC playoff race year after year. They have a perennial MVP candidate quarterback. They have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Go get a jump ball threat. Go get a guy that is dynamic on the outside, and get Lamar Jackson, somebody different, somebody that's not, we got new coaching in the building. We have it's a whole overhaul for this team, and get a new identity in your wide receiver room.
This is a perfect match.
Has to
be. I was really glad that you included Baltimore here, because I think it's fair that it seems like every single mock draft that's coming out right now has them taking defense. And that's fair, because it was horrible last year, but they were also super banged up. And this team has a massive need at wide receiver. I don't know that it's fully recognized, because I think if it was, we'd at least be entertaining the idea that if one of these guys is available in this range of the draft, that they would consider picking them. And Tate is a player that I've seen mocked as high as 5. And I've also seen him mocked firmly in this range, where you're even flirting with getting into the 20s. So it's kind of hard right now to understand where these top 3 wide receivers are going to go in the draft, because it doesn't seem like anybody has really agreed on that, or we don't have any sort of intel, obviously, at this point to know for sure what to expect. But I think if a player like Tate is available at 14, and you're talking about a team whose second leading wide receiver was DeAndre Hopkins, 39-year-old DeAndre Hopkins, who had 330 yards last year. That was your second highest leading wide receiver.
Terrible.
Then you're in a pretty desperate need of help in that room. And I love Zay Flowers, and I love who he is as a player. I love what he's been. He's a 1,200-yard receiver this year. He's been great for them. This is the complementary piece to that. You have the downfield yak explosiveness of Zay Flowers, and now you pair him with this player that you were trying to make DeAndre Hopkins in 2025. And we've tried with Rashad Bateman for years to be this player opposite of Flowers, playing on the outside, being this separator with catch point ability that can play over the middle of the field. This is that exact player that they've been trying to patch. You are playing with these patchwork pieces for years. This is that player. So, and I think now is the time when you have a new offensive coordinator coming in, new coaching staff, obviously in general. You have Jesse Minter with the defensive-minded head coach. He's bringing in a hot shot. He's bringing in the 29-year-old Ben Johnson student in Declan Doyle. We can't mess around here. We're not bringing in a Johnson disciple to play with DeAndre Hopkins and Rashad Bateman and whatever else is going on here. Tylan Wallace, if he's still I don't even know what they're trotting out. We need to get real talent on this offense. And I know the defense needs help too, but I just think if you have the possibility of taking a wide receiver with this level of talent at 14, you have to do it and support your MVP caliber quarterback and help this offense turn a new leaf under a new coaching staff.
And if you're sitting here and you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, this is not going to happen. They will take defense. They got a defensive head coach. Their defense is terrible, like you were saying. In a class like this, where the defense rolls deep, we have a lot of good defensive players in this class. And when you talk about offensive skill position players, there's 6 that you love, I think, maybe total. And Carnell Tate's one of them. So if you can get into this tier 1, tier 2 of offensive skill player talent, why not? You only have so many chances with Lamar Jackson in his prime, whatever. But linebackers will be there in the second. The defensive linemen will be there in the second. Cornerbacks will probably be there in the second. So I think you hit hard, try to get an elite receiver, and then maybe that's the only offensive player you're taking the entire draft.
Listen, wide receiver, here's a take that I've been sitting on. Here's where we get into some takes that have been brewing.
It's not your Valentine's Day take.
It's not. That'll be later. I have been hearing a lot that this is a very deep wide receiver class.
Okay.
Which I agree with. But I think the expectations are getting a little bit out of tune because of it being a weaker draft class. And so it's like DJ's top 100 or somebody released the top 100 recently where there were 17 wide receivers in that group.
Okay.
And Matt Harmon was like, oh shit, I got to get to work. Like I got to dive in. This must be a loaded class. And I'm like, okay, fine. There's a lot of talented players that serve roles for NFL teams, but I don't think this is a situation where it's like we're rolling deep with impact players.
Right.
This is not like 2024 when it was like you're going to get Ladd McConkey in the second round.
Right.
This is like we're going to get to the second round and you can have Antonio Williams and Omar Cooper, and then we're going to work down through like Malachi Fields and a hurt Chris Bell. Right. And like, these are the guys that we're getting. This is not a situation where it's like we're getting a lot of high-end wide receiver talent and it's just getting pushed down the board. These three guys at the top, and then maybe this little intermediary tier that exists below them, that's where the difference makers are in this class. And so if you're not going to get one of those guys, you can certainly help the room. And we're talking about all these teams that need wide receiver threes. You're going to be able to find those on day 2 in this class. Absolutely. But for a team like the Ravens, who are just like in a desperate position to add real talent across from their existing guy, their one existing guy, this is where you're going to find that. And it's going to be in the first round.
Thank you for making my point more eloquently than I did. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to color that in because I literally was like, I saw this like take about this being such a deep class. And I was like, yeah, but also like, let's not get carried away. I don't think these are guys that are, rocking the boat.
No, I agree. You got a lot of guys that are going to end up, as wide receiver threes, like you said, and that's fine. And every team needs that, but don't think you're going to get a guy that's going to alter your franchise in the mid-late second round. I don't think that's this class, and it's still a good wide receiver class, but it's not that good.
But it carries the fantasy. That's what we're talking about here. It's Camp Dynasty. I want difference-making wide receivers. I don't think there's a ton of those in this class. That's the problem. There's guys that I like, but am I pounding the table for them making a difference in my fantasy lineup? I don't know that I am.
Well, there's a couple more difference-making wide receivers left on the wheel.
Let's do it. Spin it.
See if we land on another one, or maybe we go somewhere else. It's going to be another difference-making receiver. Makai Lemon.
All right. I did this one.
Yep, you had the pleasure. So let's hear what we got.
Did. It was an absolute pleasure to think about this one. Makai Lemon, one of my favorite players in the draft class. Very much a fluid situation with this top 3 group for me. I love all of these guys so much. They're all different players serving very different roles. And that's what made this very fun, was to think about how do they slot in. We slot a guy like Tate in for Baltimore. For Lemon, it's a little bit of a different conversation. I have 4 suitors here, starting at number 9. We're We're going to start in the top 10 here with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Weird
Another,
spot to even think about the Chiefs at number 9.
and that's again, just like with Baltimore, you got to take advantage of it while it's here. So maybe a player like Lemon is the one. We also have the Rams at 13. Again, kind of a weird one. A good team benefiting from a trade situation here, ending up at 13. The Jets coming up again here. This is going to be that trendy wide receiver spot. And then the Panthers at 19. Another spot we talked about with Tate. And this is kind of a fun group of teams because I think it's like teams in different places in terms of their franchise trajectories, needing different things. The Chiefs, it's a token wide receiver spot, and it has been for years. And then it's like we got the Rashee Rice pick, and that was a big home run if you took him in the second round of a dynasty rookie draft. But they're still just absolutely depleted there. And Rice is also kind of an enigma that you don't exactly know. So, like, that is a huge need. And this smaller, speedy guy definitely kind of fits what it seems like they've been valuing. The Rams are an interesting one. I included this one first and foremost because I saw this in a mock draft recently. And I hadn't really thought about the Rams being a wide receiver spot this high. They do have 2 first-round picks, but using their first on a wide receiver was interesting with a player like Puka Nacua in place. And, of course, Devontae Adams, a little bit older, but still very good. But the fit here was the selling point, the gritty toughness and the ability that Lemon has to slot into this McVay offense. And so certainly considered it, but spoiler, not my perfect match. The Jets, again, I think I've made my point about this. I just really don't like what they're doing, and I don't really like the thought of any of these guys going there. And all of this is then to say that the Carolina Panthers to me stood out here, and they are going to be the team that I picked for Makai Lemon. I think same conversation sort of that you can talk about with the Rams in terms of being a real nice scheme fit here. This is going to be Dave Canales, the Pete Carroll tree of coaches, valuing toughness, competitiveness. We want to run the ball, but we're going to set up these big explosives off of play action. I think that's perfect for a guy like Lemon, who, even though he is a smaller player, he's bringing a ton of competitiveness. He's going to block hard. He's going to play tough, and then he's going to create those explosives absolutely when the time comes. And then, of course, also a complementary skill set. We talked about a little bit of overlap with Tate and McMillan. Here's where you get that real compliment. And even a player like Jalen Coker as well, who you had Coker playing in the slot a pretty decent chunk of the time last year. You can keep that going. You can play Lemon outside. You can play him at the Z, and then you can flip flop those guys, move those pieces around. This is a versatile player, and I think Coker, being a versatile player as well, gives this offense a lot of flexibility. And then he's a quarterback friendly target as well. Just like Tedero McMillan, that was something that we really liked about that fit last year was, hey, Bryce Young needs a little bit of help. Let's get him a guy that can make his life easier, where if that ball is not perfectly on target, here's a player that can still go and get it. And again, even as a smaller player, that is exactly what Lemon is going to bring as well. Catch point talent that far exceeds his size. And so I really like this pairing and how this wide receiver room can come together with Lemon there. So this is going to be my perfect match.
Yeah, this was between the Chiefs and the Panthers for me. Didn't, as we've said, don't love the Jets landing spot. We're going to stay away from that. I was interested by the Rams landing spot, but I feel like a lot of his production would just get overtaken by what Puka does. And then I felt the same way about Rashee Rice and the Chiefs. And so I ended up in the same spot as you with a perfect match with the Carolina Panthers. Maybe back-to-back years we can get a perfect match with a wide receiver on the Panthers and have this be, a little bit of Lemon on this team. So I think a lot of the same things as you, where we just need more playmakers on this team. Obviously, Bryce Young has his limitations, but there are moments where he looks elite, and there are moments where he looks fine. And I think having Tyrone McMillan helped him look elite a little more often in this last season. And he's more of a down threat. He runs those, or downfield threat. He runs those, digs and comebacks, and you see him running those like big curls, finding spots and zones. And I think Makai Lemon gives you a player that does a little less and can do a lot with it. He can run more. He can be basically the outlet for Bryce Young, where he doesn't have to, pitch it off to whoever is in the backfield. Like you don't have to be giving it to Rico Dowdle or Chuba Hubbard or Jonathan Brooks if he is alive still. We can just give it to Makai Lemon and let him get, soak up all of those yak opportunities. So I think that this would be a really fun pairing. This would be, a really fun offense once they get up and rolling, and if they can, spray the ball around a little bit. So I like this a lot. This is a perfect match.
Look at us go, man.
Love it.
We're locked in right now. Can we keep it up?
Let's see. Let's bring up the wheel.
Still haven't had a running back yet.
Not yet. We got 3 on the board. See where we land next. Almost, but
I thought so. But
end up heading over back to the tight end world for our second of 2 tight ends with Eli Stowers. I had the opportunity to select Eli Stowers suitors a little later than Kenyon Sadiq. You'd imagine, Sadiq goes mid to late first round. Stowers could very easily go after where I have him in his range, but I had him basically in the second round. Starting with Tennessee at 35. They have one tight end that's good. It's Chigakonkwo, but he hasn't been fantastic, hasn't been a big difference maker. He can do a lot of things, but Stowers can also do a lot of those same things, and the same sentiment goes for him as it did earlier with KC Concepcion. Like, we just need help on this offensive roster, and we need playmakers. We got a new regime in town. We got a new quarterback, copy paste that same argument. Why we'd want Stowers here. Cincinnati at 41. We've been trying to get a tight end into this Cincinnati offense. We keep talking about it. They draft these guys late. They don't really do much. They sign these cheap free agents. They pop off every once in a while, but nothing is like very exciting, I would say. And yes, Cincinnati needs a lot of defensive help, so maybe they're hammering defense in this draft. But I think if you want to add firepower to this Cincinnati offense, Stowers would be really fun to add a wrinkle to this team alongside the 2 elite wide receivers that they have. And then I have Miami at 43. We were getting the corpse of Darren Waller touchdowns on this team. And I know McDaniel is out the door, but either way, like, there's no tight end on this roster. Like, there's no real player to catch passes over the middle, and we don't know what this quarterback situation is going to look like next year. We don't know really anything about the Dolphins offense other than, like, we got Achane, we got Waddle, and maybe we'll have Tyreek Hill, and that's about it. But there is a vacuum at the tight end position, and there is a skeleton of a really good offense in Miami, and like, can somebody revive it? We'll see, but Stowers is a good player, and like, this is one of the biggest holes in the tight end position in the league, really. And then Carolina is back up again at 51. We just added Makai Lemon to this team. They don't really have a tight end either that's like super reliable. They have Tommy Tremble. They have, other rotating guys in there, but nothing that I'm super excited about. Stowers, I would be super excited about. That would be a really fun team. Bryce Young, as a lot of short quarterbacks do, doesn't throw over the middle a ton, so that might be a little bit problematic with a tight end that works over the middle, runs those seams, like one of the best in the business in this class. So my perfect match for Eli Stowers was the Miami Dolphins. So let's work through this. Stowers just, I feel like, needs opportunity more than anything. Maybe he needs a year in the league before a year or two, traditional tight end timeline rather than this microwave timeline that everybody expects now because we've had some successful young tight ends. Stowers is going to need a couple years to fully, I think, come into his own and become a real threat, a real force at the tight end position, a consistent, producer at the tight end position. But I think in Miami, he has a really good opportunity to do that. And whether it's Tua, whether, they can make it work at quarterback, whether they bring in another veteran, I'm not sure. But I think having this like wide open spot where it's just like begging to be filled by anybody, and Stowers, I think, would fill it perfectly.
This is not a perfect
easy.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity is enticing. The question that I had about this one was the fit in particular. I mean, we have a new coaching staff. Obviously, Jeff Hafley's coming in. Offensive coordinator was on this staff last year. That was Bobby Slowick. He was promoted from the passing game coordinator to the offensive coordinator. You'll remember Bobby Slowick from Houston, that CJ Stroud rookie year when it was like, is this guy the next sensation? And then last year or 2 years ago, it was like, oh, what the hell happened? But Slowick is from this Shanahanian tree with the wide zone running scheme. And I mean, hey, Mike McDaniel and the boys, they had Darren Waller cooking last year. So maybe I'm overthinking this one. But I'm thinking about the sorts of tight ends that this system kind of traditionally deploys. And even back in Slowick's tenure in Houston, where it was like they were taking guys like Cade Stover to get in here and just be a little bit more physical, bigger presences, more traditional tight ends with that dual skill set, where we have those questions lingering about what is the role for Stowers at the next level. Like, this is a player that is playing primarily out of the slot at Vanderbilt, has not put a ton of blocking prowess on film in the last 2 years. I don't think he's a terrible blocker, but also like they did take him off the field in some obvious run situations. So that does say something. And so I was not entirely sure if this was the right spot for him. And so I elected to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this was a drum that I was beating last year with the Mike Gesicki role and kind of his, like, I mean, this is maybe one of the last bastions of the flex tight end in its full form in the NFL, where we have one of these guys that's playing out of the slot almost as a hybrid wide receiver. And that's just been his role on this team. And they can theoretically cut him, but they're not going to save a ton of money by doing it. And I don't know if they will, but I think Stowers was kind of the natural successor if they wanted to move on and get a younger player and, spend capital on a tight end higher in the draft this year. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting to think about the fact that Darren Waller, who fits this sort of prototype, was a factor in that Dolphins offense last year. So it's certainly not out of the question.
Yeah, no, I definitely heavily considered the Bengals. They were a close second in this one, where I was like, getting, we got firepower in the Bengals offense, but Joe Burrow does love to throw to his tight end. You see tight end production in this team every single year, and you'll see, like, Gesicki had his career best games in this Bengals offense. So maybe if you have a young guy that can do it more consistently, you just slot that in and don't really think about it.
Well, let's try to get back on the right track. Maybe we get to a running back here.
Yeah, where the odds are increasing that we get a running back. But We'll see. Not yet.
It's not going to happen.
Another wide receiver, Denzel Boston. So
All right.
I had Denzel Boston in this exercise here. And with Denzel Boston, I went kind of late first, very top of the second round. I think we talk about this tier of wide receiver, and Boston is in that tier where he's going to end up, I think, being a first rounder. But I think top of the class is the top of the class where you have those three, and then Boston maybe is just outside looking in. But we have Pittsburgh at 21. We have, again, similar conversation as we had with Carnell Tate to Pittsburgh, where have DK Metcalf, not a whole lot else. We have Buffalo at 26. This is a little bit different of a conversation than we had with Antonio Williams because he's not at all really like any of the wide receivers that they have on that roster right now. And, you know, Josh Allen could use an outlet like this where Josh Allen makes those risky kind of 50-50 plays and wants to throw that ball up there and give his guy a chance. Denzel Boston is really good at receiving those. So got Buffalo at 26, got New England at 31. This one was, you know, I heavily considered also because we talked about why we didn't want certain players on New England. They don't have a wide receiver like this. So this would be, you know, slot him in if he falls down this low. Could feel pretty good getting him at 31. And then the Jets at 33. Put him next to Garrett Wilson, I guess. And they're two different types of receiver and could make it, you know, a little more interesting in that wide receiver room. Just need bodies. And Denzel Boston is definitely one of those bodies. But I ended up going with New England here. I thought that this one was a pretty easy one. And this is, again, if Denzel Boston slides a little bit, just a type of receiver that they don't have, like we talked about with Diggs and Booty and Douglas and Williams, where it's a lot of fast guys, it's a lot of small guys, it's a lot of really good route runners. They just don't have a guy that can go get a 50-50 ball other than Mac Hollins. And, like, I think Mac Hollins is a fine player, but I don't think he should be, like we saw in the Super Bowl, catching really important passes in the fourth quarter on third down in the biggest game of their career. I think, like, we could trust maybe a little bit better of a player. And Denzel Boston, I think, could be that player where he can work the boundary. He can, you know, exercise Drake May's arm a little bit. They can hammer that back shoulder, gain a little bit of chemistry as the careers go on, and develop into maybe a dynamic 1-2 punch, because Diggs probably not going to be the same player for very long, and none of those other guys are, you know, great, I wouldn't say, not wide receiver one material.
Boston was the easiest one and the hardest one.
Okay.
Because there are two teams that are, like, of all of the players that we're talking about, there are two teams that stand out like shining beacons with Boston. But the hard part is they're both perfect. So it's almost like you got to flip a coin. And in my case, I went with the team that's picking earlier in the draft, and I went with the Buffalo Bills.
Real quick, think about the jersey. The Patriots jersey with Boston on the back.
I mean,
how many Bostonians would immediately buy that jersey?
It would be the highest selling jersey since Brady overnight.
But the Bills, I get it. I like it.
Yeah, this was, like, to me, this is the exact player that Buffalo has been begging for years, and that we have all been collectively talking about for the Bills for years. Like, this was why the Kenyon Coleman thing was so celebrated when it happened, was because it was like, oh my God, they finally took the big outside receiver with the jump ball ability for Josh Allen to, wind up and throw it to him downfield, let him go up and grab it. Like that's what we thought was going to happen with Keon. And unfortunately, we've seen what's happened with Keon, and not all of it may be entirely because of his ability on a football field, but
just was one of the most insane press conferences I think I've ever seen.
It,
like I love Keon, and I was like happy that he like got drafted where he did and all that. Like we were very happy about that. And that it obviously hasn't gone how they wanted to. But for their GM to just like publicly be like, yeah, I hate him. It's like, what is happening? Like I've never seen something like that.
The gymnastics that were happening to like the PR of it, but it was like you're trying to do PR while simultaneously throwing your own player under the butt. I don't know. But what I do know is they still need this player because it's not Kenyon Coleman. This was a team that was giving Tyrell Shavers run in this role last year. This is a team that after that brought back Gabe Davis to try to play this role. I mean, that's how desperate they've been for this player. And so Khalil Shakir has been great as this, inside underneath like wide receiver 2 type of a player. They have their tight ends that they like, and that, Kincaid getting better and all of that. Here is that player that can play on the outside, that can stretch the field, that isn't a project in the way that Kenyon Coleman necessarily was. Is Denzel Boston a perfect player? No, but he's coming in with route running ability, with athleticism, and of course, the big draw, this catch point talent that will show up on these Josh Allen deep bombs, where once upon a time it was Gabe Davis. After that, it was Mac Hollins. And now it can be a real player with Denzel Boston. But everything I just said can also apply to the Patriots, just like you outlined. It is really 2 perfect situations for this player.
I would love to see the Boston jersey.
Yeah,
for the Boston faithful. They deserve
that. Might have swayed it.
They deserve nothing more.
All right. That was tough, but we can bounce back. There are some huge names left on this list.
Sure are.
Our top 2 names even in this class are still on the board.
See where we land. We're saving them for later because we've got Elijah Sarratt here. Was that mine or yours? I'm losing track. That was yours.
That was mine. So Sarratt he's a my guy. And he's kind of an our guy, honestly. Like we both like this player a lot.
He's a camper, man.
He is. He was an OG. We've been talking about him for a while. I, was really impressed with what I saw this year. If you go searching the top 50s that are coming out, if you go searching for a mock draft right now, you're probably not going to see this name where we're talking about him. And so having him on this show, this could have been any number of players. This could have been Omar Cooper. This could have been, a Malachi Fields. This could have been any of these wide receivers that's getting some buzz right now. But we're sticking true to our guy, and a player that, quite frankly, I'm starting to realize that I'm a lot higher on than where people are at with him, because I think the consensus range right now is kind of fringe second, third round area. Like we're talking about him towards the turn of the second round. That's where he's showing up on like the big boards that are coming out and all of that. So that's where I have him here. That's the spots we're going to be looking at here. And so we have the Steelers at 53. We've talked about this one a few times with some different wide receivers. They certainly need one. We have the 49ers at 58. The Bills, we just talked about, at 60. And the Patriots, who we just talked about, at 64. So everything we just talked about with the Bills and the Patriots, I think applies here for Sarratt as well. Is he the athlete that Boston is? No. Is he going to be able to stretch the field like Boston can? No. Is he as proficient of a downfield ball winner as Boston is? No. But he's fitting a similar archetype to that. And so that's why I was very kind of honed in on those two spots initially. But then I started to think about something else, which is that the San Francisco 49ers kind of have a huge wide receiver need of their own. Brandon Ayuk is gone. It's over.
Yeah.
And so they don't have him. They didn't have him last year. We saw kind of what that looked like. And what it looked like was Juwan Jennings leading the way. He's gone. He's a free agent. Ricky Pearsall, promising young player that has really been unable to stay healthy. That's been the problem. So when you talk about going into 2026, what is the state of this wide receiver room? It is very much in flux. And I think a player like Sarratt brings a lot of the qualities that made Juwan Jennings a really good fit in this offense. You're getting some size, you're getting toughness, you're getting a willingness as a blocker. You're getting that outside receiver that's going to be able to run on these outside zone plays. And that can also be a friendly target for Brock Purdy as well. So the more I thought about it, the more I was kind of like, yeah, I really like Sarratt in this offense. And I think his role could be bigger than maybe we'd even expect if this were to happen where they took him in the second round. So I went with the 49ers.
Yeah, you look at this and you're like, the mental gymnastics you have to go through to not just put him on the Patriots or the Bills. And we just put Boston on the Bills, so maybe that kind of takes it out of my mind. But then it's like, why would we not just put him on the Patriots? They missed out. They got left at the altar by Denzel Boston. They had the jerseys made, stitched, and they're like, well, what do we do with these now? I can't give this to Elijah Sarratt. We got to figure out how we're going to move on. And Sarratt would make a whole lot of sense with the Patriots. But I actually ended up going with the 49ers. So this is a perfect match.
Dang.
I was just looking at this player, big body receiver that really fits a spot that they don't really have. You talk about how you want different body types in your wide receiver room. And Sarratt is one that they currently are just lacking. And a guy that's willing to get dirty in the run game, which is vitally important for Kyle Shanahan, as we've seen with these wide receivers that end up in the doghouse because they don't want to block. And then you get, Juwan Jennings having breakout games because he's the only guy out there that is willing to block, or like Kendrick Bourne is the guy that's out there willing to lay his life on the line for Christian McCaffrey. I think Sarratt is willing to do that day one. So I picked the same thing. I'm actually surprised that you ended up there.
Yeah.
But another reason I was like, I don't really want him on the Patriots is because, like, he's not – I don't think he's a wide receiver one per se, where he's like a ceiling raiser for an offense. I think he's a really good plug-and-play wide receiver. And so I think the Patriots, if they're going to go wide receiver, really need a guy that's going to, like, raise the ceiling of the offense. And I just don't know if Sarratt's that guy. I think the 49ers, on the other hand, very well could use a guy to just punch in this offense and produce.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've seen what a real wide receiver one can do in this 49ers offense with Ayuk, but when he wasn't there, it's like, yeah, they're just going to pound the rock.
Yeah.
And I mean, McCaffrey's going to have 1,000 yards receiving himself, and then we'll just have guys on the outside that are willing to block and then get involved. And, Jennings has a 700-yard season, 9 touchdowns. That's kind of like what we'd expect from Sarratt.
Yeah.
This is, like you said, he's not going to be a 1,500-yard player, but he can fill this sort of a role. And so, yeah, I think with the Bills, for me, it was like, can he stretch the field in the way that they need him to? No. And for the Patriots, it's kind of like you were saying, Laura, is this a ceiling raiser in this offense? And I like that fit more than the Bills, but still going for the 49ers. So I'm glad that was a big one. I kind of thought I was throwing that one I was like, there's no way he's gonna pick one of these
Yeah,
two.
I was like, this feels like the obvious choice, but I was like, God, this 49ers fit makes a lot of sense.
That's why we're the best. That's why they call us in to make these matches.
Why we're a perfect match.
we're all right. Let's do it.
We got 3 running backs left on this wheel. I think that's all the running backs, isn't it?
Have
we had one yet?
No, we have not had one yet.
Odds are we get one here.
We are milking it. This wheel is weighted for the content.
Here we go. Jonah Coleman. We finally get a running back on the board. Our top 2 players are still on this thing. Has a eye for drama. The wheel does.
Yes.
But Jonah Coleman, I had him in the 3rd round range, and he could go higher, could go lower. I mean, I really have no idea, but that's why I kind of placed him where I did. So Jonah Coleman, Tennessee at 66, Houston at 69, Washington at 71, New Orleans at 73. So Tennessee, we have Pollard, we have Tyjae Spears, but neither of them are great, I wouldn't say. And I think Jonah Coleman maybe plays on Tyjae Spears' corner a little bit, where he's a little bit of a receiving back, but he's a little beefier, and so he's a better power back than Spears is. So I think they could coexist. What happens with Pollard, I don't know if Pollard's long for this Titans team. So I kind of view this as a Tyjae Spears and then whoever they add into this offense. Houston, we had the Woody Marks, we had the Nick Chubb, we had whoever else went through that running back room. Let's get Jonah Coleman into the building and let him be a power back and let Woody Marks be a 3rd down back. And I think that feels real nice, where we are having Jonah Coleman in on 1st and 2nd down, but even 3rd down every once in a while. I don't think you got to sub him out every 3rd down because Jonah Coleman's a good enough receiving back. But we are pounding the rock as an early down back, Jonah Coleman in Houston. Washington at 71. Obviously, Bill Krosky-Merritt was a revelation last year, but really wasn't consistent, I wouldn't say. When he got opportunity, he was good, but it was never – you never really felt comfortable, I wouldn't say. If you had Bill Krosky-Merritt, or if you were a Washington fan, maybe you were saying give Bill the ball more, but I just don't think it's signed, sealed, delivered. This is Bill Krosky-Merritt's job. And, they're undergoing some changes over there too. And last year was kind of a injury disaster with Jane Daniels going down. And then New Orleans at 73. I don't know if Alvin Kamara, how long Alvin Kamara is going to remain a Saint. Kendre Miller is still a Saint. Devin Neal is a Saint, but none of those guys, it doesn't seem, are RB1 at this point in their life, and I don't know if they ever will be. I'm still holding out hope for Devin Neal, but at this point, it's if we get Jonah Coleman in the room, I think he complements Devin Neal and Kendre Miller really nice, and so I think it still makes sense to work with those guys that are already in the backfield with this team that just needs help in general. So the team that I matched up was Houston. So Houston is already kind of an established team where we made the playoffs a couple of years ago. We have been, in the mix in the AFC South. We have CJ Stroud. We have Nico Collins. We've drafted wide receiver. We need to improve the offensive line. So we wait until the 3rd round to get our next running back, but we cannot trot out the running back, group that we had last year. It just was untenable. We couldn't get anything going on early downs. We couldn't, good play off of the run game. These pass rushers could tee off on CJ Stroud. Stroud ends up playing worse. It's just a disaster. So let's get a guy that can pace this offense, that can, add a little bit of stability to our early downs, and then add a little bit of a 1-2 punch with Woody Marks.
Yeah, this is a really challenging one because obviously this range of first of all, if you're sitting there like he's not going in the third round, just say that these are the fourth round picks then. Like just
Yeah, yeah.
let's just do that.
Say they're the 5th round picks.
Right.
Say they're the
Like
2nd round picks if you really like them.
yeah. So that part whatever, but for me, I did not select the Texans. I selected the Washington Commanders as my perfect match. The reason for that, and again, this was probably the hardest one because I could really envision him in any of these spots. But what sold it for me was the fact that Washington right now is just, I don't know. To me, I kind of view it as a blank slate. And I get it that you're going to have people that love Bill or have Bill on their dynasty teams that are like, that's not true. That's impossible. But I like this was just a collection of guys to me last year. You had Chris Rodriguez getting legitimate run. Jeremy McNichols was still filling that pass catching back role here. It's been kind of a conglomerate for years at this point in this backfield. And to me, Jonah Coleman is a player that can bring some stability here. And it's also the fact that he's going to be able to help this offense in a variety of ways. And you have a new offensive coordinator coming in with David Blau, who is kind of an unknown. Like it's really hard
Just
to
like
know.
random guys getting jobs this year. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I mean, like former quarterback in this league, and he was on this staff under Kingsbury last year, but it seems like there is going to be some radical change. This isn't going to be like Kingsbury 2.0 with this, air raid up tempo stuff. Like he's got quotes saying, we're going to put Jaden Daniels under center a lot this year.
I like it.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a totally different experience for this offense. And I think if you're going to play under center, if you're going to try to set up like play action looks and stuff, get a back in here that can fill a multitude of roles so that we don't have to do this conglomeration of guys. And McNichols is a free agent anyway, so your pass catching back is gone. And neither Bill nor Chris Rodriguez were involved as pass catchers really last year. So enter Jonah Coleman, who can come in and personally, and you may disagree with this if you're listening to this, but personally, I would say would come in as the most talented running back on this team and one that can fill a role that none of these guys really can right now, which is being a premier pass catcher out of the backfield as well. So I think it adds a different element to this offense, which is under construction and can be a huge boost to the greater sum of it all.
Yeah, I think that he adds what you said exactly to this Commanders offense is a pass catching back out of the backfield. It's like, do you sit here and say, yeah, I'd rather have Bill Krosky-Merritt be my early down back and Jonah Coleman be my third down back, or does Coleman end up just taking the job outright? I don't know, but I would like the landing spot either way.
We have 3 names left, 2 of which are the top 2 names in this class for us at this point.
Let's see where we end up. See if the wheel continues its flare for the Tabata. All right, get one of these top names off the board.
The Notre Dame running backs are last. That's fun.
That is fun. But we are going with Jordyn Tyson, who you had.
Yep. Jordyn Tyson, a lot of conversation about this top wide receiver tier. Who's wide receiver 1? Which one of these guys is going first? I saw a mock recently. Actually, it was Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock where Tyson was the number 3 wide receiver taken, and he was taken at like 21 or something. So again, just like we've talked about with the other 2, even a player like Tyson, it's hard to know right now where he goes. For me personally, I'm going to have a premium range on him. I think we've heard this name in a premium range before. I don't think it's out of the question that he goes there, even as we start to hear this kind of creep of like, are these guys going to go later than we thought? So for me, the suitors here are going to start at number 5 with the New York Giants. Then New Orleans, the Saints at number 8, the Chiefs at number 9, and our favorite wide receiver spot, the Jets at 16. I like all 3 of the spots in the top 10 a lot. And I think it's very plausible that he goes as high as 5. Like, I think this is kind of, the narrative is shifting a little bit, but like, I do think this is a premium talent. I think he's worthy of a top 5 pick in this draft. However, when I'm thinking about a team that needs a wide receiver badly and needs this type of wide receiver specifically, I am going to say that the Kansas City Chiefs are the perfect match for Jordyn Tyson. This Chiefs spot, it's always a thing. And even when they got one, they still need another one. We've talked about that already on this show. But for me, the player that fits this offense right now and what they need is Jordyn Tyson. They need stability above anything else. They need to add a player that's reliable, that's versatile. We have a team here that had 150 targets spread across Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster in 2025.
Yuck.
150 targets to those 3 players. So I think the Chiefs have been really dialed in on this speed element. I mean, they took Xavier Worthy, who is still a work in progress.
Fastest man alive.
He's the fastest man alive, but as a wide receiver, we're still kind of waiting for it to all come together. We have Rashee Rice, of course. Talked about it a little bit. He's been great. He does serve a little bit more of a limited role, however, and also is a head case and a bad guy. So there's always that in the back of your mind too. And I think Tyson is just a guy that you can bring in, and he's not going to be this speed guy that they're chasing. This isn't Tyquan Thornton, MVS, Hollywood Brown. Like, let's get a real wide receiver in here that can work the middle of the field in the intermediate, that can work down the field. It's not to say that he can't stretch the field. He can be a field stretching player in this offense. He's just not a pure burner, and that's what they need. Get away from the pure speed element, bring in a guy that can stretch the field with nuance and route running, but can also run the full route tree over the rest of the field, which is still a player that's operating at a higher level than even a Rashee Rice. You can keep getting Rice his touches in the ways that they do, but Tyson can operate as that pure number 1 wide receiver that's running the full route tree, that's threatening all areas of the field. And you're going to make it really, really challenging for defenses to match up with these guys, because you can play Rice and Tyson inside outside. You can move them around. You can open up space for Rice with Tyson. So I think stop chasing the speed guys and take a player like this. And that's how you can really start to reconfigure this wide receiver room.
How are we not going to give Patrick Mahomes Jordyn Tyson? Of course, this is a perfect match. Yeah, like you said, we just a real wide receiver. They've been trying to remake Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes since Tyreek Hill left. Let's not. How about, we talked about this similar conversation with the Ravens, where they've been kind of hammering this one body type skill set wide receiver for years. And while it's worked to a point, you reach critical mass and it's like, okay, we got to try something different, man. And the Chiefs are kind of in the same spot where we go speed receiver, speed receiver, speed receiver. We go, Rashee Rice kind of broke that mold, and now he's their best receiver. And you go, like, get a guy that's going to just be on time and has great hands with Patrick Mahomes. He can run you think about the like signature plays with Mahomes and Tyreek. And yes, you might think of like the deep balls and all that, but you think of like 3rd and 2, they're just unstoppable because Tyreek Hill won immediately off the line. That's something Jordyn Tyson can do. And he does it more as a technician than like as an athlete beating you with speed. He's going to beat you with his feet and beat you early, and then Mahomes is going to run this RPO and jet it over to you. So I think like if this happens, really fun outcome for both of these, for Mahomes, for Jordyn Tyson. But also like maybe just jumps Jordyn Tyson up easily number 1 in like the Dynasty wide receiver talks where we're like rookie wide receiver 1, how high is he in Dynasty, and we get into those conversations. But that's kind of, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire effect, but Jordyn Tyson actually a good player.
Good, yeah. All right. Perfect match. Once again, we're certainly batting a pretty good average.
I think we're doing all right. And I wonder if the wheel knows what we want here. But we'll see. We're spinning the wheel of love once again. It wants love. I was going to say like we should just save love for last. But that wouldn't be right.
You're right.
It wouldn't be right.
If we went against the wheel, it would revolt, and the podcast would fold in on itself.
We would start to hate each other.
Yes,
the spirit of love would leave. We'd both get divorced. It'd be all bad. So we can't do that.
We can't tempt fate like that. Like, let's just do this the right way, which is that Jeremiyah Love is up here, second to last. The best player in this draft class, and a running back that is going to go very high in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and I have him in the top 10, which is aggressive, I know, and maybe you're like, there's no way, but you got to think, this is a little bit of a iffy class here, and running backs going high is back in vogue. We're doing it, and we broke the mold a little bit with Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Now we're doing it Ashton Genty. We got a player, and we've been talking about this running back class. We talked about only one other running back so far in this episode, and we only have one more, and it's Jadarian Price. And that's for a good reason. Not a lot of running backs in this class, so if you want a guy, you got to take him. And you might have to take him higher than you're comfortable taking him. So I started out with Tennessee at 4, which I know is a reach, get it out of your system. I get it. But talked about Tennessee a little bit before with Jonah Coleman. They have Tyjae Spears. They may have Tony Pollard going forward. But, if you get Jeremiyah Love in the building, you get a difference maker. Automatically, you get this run game going. You get Cam Ward rolling with a guy that can get him. He can be a 1,200 1,300-yard player all-purpose. Washington at 7. Again, we talked about this running back room. You picked Jonah Coleman to go into this one where Jeremiyah Love can do a little bit of everything. You just get like a souped-up version of whatever like the ideal outcome of this running back room is. But the dynamics between him and Jaden Daniels in this backfield, real scary to look at. It's a defense. You look in the backfield, you see Lamar Jackson, you see Derrick Henry, and you're like, I don't really want either of them to have the ball running downhill. I think you feel the similar fear looking in the Washington backfield with Jeremiyah Love there. New Orleans at 8. This team lacks a real athletic running back in this backfield. Jeremiyah Love is a step above, old Alvin Kamara and everybody else that's in this backfield. they need athletes. They need real good players on this team. And I don't know. They have a lot of holes to fill. I don't know if they'd hit running back here because I think you need to be at least a little bit competitive, or you need to be like on the upswing to take a running back here. But if you're crazy enough, then maybe you go here. And then Kansas City at 9. I know they just took Jordyn Tyson, but usually we do a positional thing where you don't double up on position.
Polyamory is not discouraged here when it comes to positional groups.
Love is love, damn it.
Yes.
So Kansas City, man, you replace Pacheco, who had his like one magical season, but since then has really not been the same. Kareem Hunt is getting real touches wearing that 29 jersey, slow as hell. Like, get Jeremiyah Love in that backfield instead, and you're looking at, a really, really sick run game alongside Patrick Mahomes coming back from injury. Maybe needs a little extra help as we bounce back. So those are my 4 teams. This one was a tough one to choose for me, actually. It ended up coming down to 2 teams. And I decided to go with Tennessee at 4. And again, 4 might be high, and you might be complaining about that. But I think, as we talked about with this wide receiver room, we took KC Concepcion to get on the Titans. We need to build an identity as an offense. We need to help Cam Ward out as much as possible. And maybe you are supposed to go tackle here. Maybe you're supposed to go defense here. Whatever EPA tells you is the best thing to do, maybe you do that. But why not get Jeremiyah Love? It'd be awesome. I could tell you that. And we'd be handing the ball off 20 times a game to Love. We'd be pitching it out to him 8 times a game, and he'd have 1,500 yards year 1. So I don't see a downside. I know it's not a perfect match. It's okay.
Man, you really swerved me on that one. I thought all signs were leading to Kansas City, and that we were not going to get a perfect match because I didn't pick Kansas City. But then when you were like going on, I was like, maybe we really do it again? But I picked New Orleans. So the Chiefs was one of those where it was almost like the couple is too perfect. Like, obviously,
they're fighting behind the scenes,
like let's put the most explosive playmaker in the draft, one of the most explosive playmakers of the last several drafts, into the Chiefs offense.
It feels like a performative relationship. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like this is like the celebrities that are dating for their image, reputation building. I didn't want to do that. And you can be mad at me for that if you want, but you didn't do it either. Nope. So clearly we were onto something there. But the reason that I took New Orleans was because this is something that, again, you're not really hearing about it. And there's maybe a reason for that, because this team does have a lot of needs. And, it's probably, if we learned anything from Vegas last year, it's like maybe we don't pump top 10 capital into running back when we have to fix the roster first. But here's a situation where, whatever you think about Tyler Shuck, he clearly had a moment at the end of the year, and they're very comfortable moving forward with him as the guy. So you have Shuck in place. They still have to figure out the contract situation with Olave, but you expect that that's going to get done. So you have the number 1 wide receiver in place. And you have your the second-year head coach, offensive mind, in Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore is a player, or a coach that was a player.
He was a player.
And
back in my day.
Yeah, I remember Kellen Moore at Boise State.
Do you?
But I
No,
do.
I'm just kidding.
That's like one of my first football memories, I feel like. But Kellen Moore, a coach that came from Philadelphia off of a Super Bowl in which he saw the value that a superstar running back can make or give to an offense in Saquon Barkley. And I think if that had any effect on him and he's thinking about what does this offense look like with a player like Jeremiyah Love in it, maybe that is not such a crazy scenario for them to entertain. If we think we have the quarterback and we do have a wide receiver that we really like, and yes, we need more of those and we need to round out this offense, but man, to think about Love as a passing game asset for the young quarterback, as an explosive playmaker in this offense, to create these big plays, to help this offense, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. And let's not forget, he'd be the successor to Alvin Kamara, which isn't a bad player to talk about Jeremiyah Love in terms of stylistically and what he brings to an NFL offense. So for them to go from Kamara to Love feels a little bit poetic, and I couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, and it's going from what was Kamara, 6th round pick, 5th round pick?
I think he was a 3rd round pick.
Was he? I thought he was later, but going from
I'll
that
look it
to
up.
like the number 7 overall, number 8 overall pick. But if you're when you want to microwave a rebuild, the best way to do it is to get a running back in the top 10, right? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Alvin Kamara was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, that's what I said. Okay.
67th overall.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
All right. Well, we have one final opportunity to make a perfect match here, and it is with Jeremiyah Love's teammate.
That's right.
Jadarian Price, the running back that is very quickly becoming the de facto consensus number 2 running back in this draft class. That's not where he is for us. But I think when you're thinking about the draft range for a player like this and where he's being talked about, it is going to be higher than what we were talking about with Jonah Coleman. And so I have him in the 2nd round, maybe the top of the 3rd round. It is a kind of a flex spot. I have the Titans. So you picked his teammate to go there, but we have him up here as well for the Titans. That's either 35 or 66. Could be either one of those. We have the Chiefs, 40, the Vikings at 49, and the Bears at 57. And this one was easy for me, and it's the Bears.
It had to be the Bears. I'll get out ahead of it and say this is a perfect match.
Yeah. Like, this one stands out very clearly because what we know about Jadarian Price is that he is a perfect fit for his own running scheme. The vision, the instincts, the explosive cutback ability. Ben Johnson was running zone at a greater than 2-to-1 ratio last year versus gap scheme. This is a zone running scheme heavily. And DeAndre Swift didn't have like a great year, but man, he certainly had moments for a player that we were like, yeah, he's just not a thing. Like, we're trying to get running back there every chance we had on perfect matches last year. And they didn't take one until the 7th round. And lo and behold, Kyle Monangai was a great player given the relationship of his, like, to his draft capital. He was a great player in this offense. So if you had a player like Price here, I think you're getting a lot of that, potential in this offense that can exceed what you had last year with guys like Swift and Monangai. And Monangai can continue to have the role that he has as that downhill between the tackles kind of thumper player that he is. And then you're going to have Price offering the explosiveness and the pass catching ability. And also, this is a really good range of the draft for him. I think this is also one of those situations where like people are talking about Price probably higher than they should because there's this vacuum of like, we want there to be another running back.
Yeah.
Like it's Love's going 4 or 8 and it's like, who's the next guy?
Yeah. Do we got to really wait till 60 to get to the next guy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think some of the conversation around Price has been a little bit irresponsible, in my opinion, about, is he going to flirt with the first round? Or I think you get a player like this at the end part of the second round, that's going to be the right range. And the spot is just perfect. So easy one.
No, I agree with you. I think, I remember early in the season how Bears fans felt about DeAndre Swift. Things changed a little bit as the season went on, and Swift got a little better. We started working Monungai in a little more. But I don't think that Swift is like long for this RB1 spot in this offense. I think like as much as you want to make the Swift thing happen, it's never really been a thing outside of in Philadelphia. And it was like kind of was a flash in the pan if you look at everywhere else that he's played. He was fun on the Lions, but got kind of cut out of that, and then was okay for Philly, and then it ends up here, and it's like, all right, well, what are we even looking at? And it's like he's a solid running back that has vision issues, that likes running to the outside, that's a good pass catcher, and I think Jadarian Price can do all those things. So I think you bring him in, he's like day one a good contributor, and you feel pretty good about having a dynamic player that can play special teams. So was a really good kick returner on this Notre Dame offense too.
Can you tell we're excited about draft season? Because this was a long episode and it felt good.
Love is in the air. What can I say?
It is. Love is in the air. A lot of love connections this year. It feels good. We got a lot of teams matching up with players, making a lot of sense. And this is really the start of the journey now where we start to really think about these sorts of things. Think about these fits, think about the draft range, start to really piece together the story of the 2026 draft. And it sure is an interesting one. When we've been on this ride for a while now, waiting to get to this point, waiting to see how many guys are going to be up here in the top part of the draft and where are they going to go and all of that. That all starts right now. So definitely one of my favorite episodes of the year. And this was a blast as always.
50-50 perfect matches for us.
All right.
Down the middle, you got 6.
That's not bad.
Nope.
I will take it. All right. If you enjoyed our matchmaking session here at Camp Dynasty, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok, camp.dynasty. And most importantly, if you are watching this on YouTube, hello. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you've not done those things already, because we very much appreciate it. If you're listening on the pod feed, be sure to follow and like and rate and maybe leave a review. I love Camp Dynasty. There it is. I wrote it for you. Boom. You're done. Just post it.
Yeah. Take the sweethearts and just like spell something out. Just like be mine, Camp Dynasty.
And from here, with the NFL season behind us now, we can officially go back and look at the 2025 class. Take a little bit of a detour. Go back to the good old days with the 2025 class. And we can redraft. We're going to do a redraft of that class next week. Do a 1-round redraft, talk about how the season ended for some of the guys, and just kind of do a little bit of a post-mortem on the rookie seasons for the 2025 group. So
a little bit of, where we went right, where we went wrong, how we're feeling going forward.
Yes.
A
A
little bit of
self-reflection
retrospective.
episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And we are not shy. I will tell you how wrong I was.
I'll tell you
players.
how right I was, damn it, too. In the same breath, I'll tell you how right I was.
Well, thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.